I'm Andy Tarnoff. I'm the host of the Deep Dive Podcast Network. And I'm here with my old friend, Jonny Cragg from Spacehog and beyond. Jonny, it is good to see you after all these years.
It's great to see you, my friend.
This was not a trip I expected to take because I didn't think there would be another Spacehog show in my lifetime or anyone's lifetime.
You're not the only one to think that.
Been listening to you since college. All these years later, here we are in Portland, and we're like outside a room and board while we're waiting for the remaining courses of our dinner, but we're taking this time to do a podcast together.
We took a sneaky break between the hors d'oeuvres and the entrees to talk a little bit. This is Portland, and it's actually not raining.
No,
which is incredible.
It's a beautiful summer day, and in like an hour or two, I'm going to see the show that I know I'm like kind of at a loss for words. But did you think that this would happen again?
No, not at all. I was fully ensconced in another career,
right,
in mental health counselling, which I'm still actively engaged in, and we got an opportunity through the Guardians of the Galaxy movie motion picture soundtrack, and it just sort of exponentially re-engaged us with our old fans and with new fans, and it gave us some chance to go out and play again, and it basically precipitated some conversations with the band members to go out and play some shows, and here we are.
You guys never really broke up exactly. You just kind of stopped and you moved on to doing something that is maybe musically adjacent, but because you work with a lot of musicians on the West Coast, but being a therapist, I think it's pretty different than being a drummer for Spacehog, but you told me that there are actually some similarities.
Yes, definitely. Mental health counselling and being a musician are alike in so much as you're dealing with mental patients every day. And they're different in so much as music is often about movement and transition and variety, and to some extent mental health counselling is very kind of sedentary and static.
Yeah.
And you have a template, but what I like about it is it's weirdly creative.
Yeah.
In so much as you kind of tailor your treatment plans for the needs of the client, and the needs of the client are never the same. You think about a brain, you think about this thing between your ears that has all these millions of neurons and possibilities and permutations to interpret events and experience in different ways. So it makes sense that people would have very different needs when they come into the consultation room. So I actually enjoy the creativity from that point of view.
Do your clients, do they know about your other career?
Yeah. I think therapists vary in how much they disclose to their patients, and what I would say is, quick Google search and you're pretty much going to find out.
Which you probably should do before you find a new therapist and figure out who that person is.
So I try and be really kind of transparent that I'm a therapist with a creative background, and I don't need to get into my life story, but they do need to understand who I am and how I go about the work, and I think the patients that I have are the ones that appreciate the fact that I have a creative background, rather than see it as some sort of impedance.
Do you have like a little bit of a cognitive dissonance putting on your rock and roll jumpsuit and sequins and knowing that 2 weeks ago you were meeting with patients and you're going to do it again?
It's weird because it's so different.
Yeah.
It's like traveling to a different country and being like, oh, it's really hot here and I don't need to wear as many clothes, or oh, people speak a different language, or the customs are different, or there's a different head. And I think actually being a drummer is helpful because drumming is about service. It's about supporting a song. It's about creating structure and order, and it's an accompanying instrument in a way that's similar to therapy in a way, because you're there to support clients. And sometimes, and I had to get used to this, sometimes that often means just validating a client for like a year. There might not really be any change.
Yeah.
Because they're not ready for change. They're just ready to sort of understand who they are and where they're at. And that can take longer than you might want it to take.
A very long time, yeah. It's not a one and done sort of thing.
If I've got a young client who's having therapy paid for that by their parents, it might be a longer process than they want to engage in, but ultimately you can't get to the change bit until you've really fully accepted the client.
One of your modalities in therapy kind of addresses this.
DBT, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about DBT and both the process in mental health and, again, that through line, because this band, Spacehog, is a group of characters that you've known for a very long time, have played with them, have stopped playing with them, and are playing with them again.
Well, DBT stands for Dialectical Behavioural Therapy. It was devised by a lady called Marsha Linehan, who lives about 200 miles north of here. I'm pointing there, but I don't
I'm not
know
sure
whether
which
that's
way
north.
is north.
I don't have my compass.
Right.
So
I'll check the sun.
It just feels like it should be.
It could be that
there.
way. I don't know.
She develops dialectical behavioural therapy at the University of Washington in Seattle. It was a sort of a mashup of existing cognitive behavioural techniques and Zen Buddhism, if you like.
Yeah.
She studied Zen Buddhism at the in Mount Shasta.
Okay.
In a monastery there, and she came up with this beautiful treatment modality that incorporates cognitive behavioural techniques, and it just really resonated for me when I was in grad school. I just thought it was a very interesting and elegant model. It was actionable, it was collaborative, it was everything that I wanted to do and be as a therapist. So. Yeah. And what they talk about, one of her core principles is this thing called radical acceptance.
Right.
We were talking about this earlier over dinner, which is, when you go from being a therapist in dialectical behavioural therapy to working in a band with people that you've known for 30, 40 years, is radical acceptance is a really key strategy for re-engaging in the work, which is there are things that I can change about my bandmates. Mm-hmm. I could say, well, can you be on time for rehearsal tomorrow? Because I noticed today you were 30 minutes late or whatever. And then there's things that you can't change, and I don't always want to change. So, and it's a dialectic, and dialectics means two opposites both being true.
Yeah.
And the dialectic in this case is, I accept who you are. And yet, dialectically speaking, there are instances and situations in which I'm going to ask you to change. And it's exactly the same as a therapist-client relationship. It's like, well, we got to get there first.
We don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but Anthony he left the band for a while.
He did.
And you guys continued on without him a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's back.
Yep.
I don't know all the details or why, but at some point, I'm assuming you guys had to come to that acceptance where even if you had issues in the past or reasons in the past, you're going to come out and do it on this tour, put it behind you.
Yeah, and a lot of that is forgiveness. And actually, there's a guy called Thomas Lynch, who came up with radically open dialectical behavioural therapy, which is basically DBT for over-control folks. It's DBT for people that run Fortune 500 companies and haven't got any friends.
Okay.
And what he said about forgiveness is it's for you. It's a gift you give to yourself. It's not for anyone else, and it's letting go the weight of an expectation, right? So if I expect my bandmate to turn up on time, I'm always going to be disappointed.
Right.
But the dialectic is I can ask that person to be on time, and I can do it skillfully, but I can't always guarantee that there's going to be a result of that conversation. So it's a fusion of actionable sort of interpersonal technique and radical acceptance, which is this person isn't very good at being somewhere on time. I'm just using that as an example.
Right. Not that we're not saying that's specifically true.
Anthony's always on time.
He's very punctual. When I asked you at the beginning of this tour how it felt to be on stage again, you said it feels like an old shoe. An old comfortable shoe.
Yeah.
Some of these songs were written in the early 90s. I think they still sound contemporary, but you guys hadn't played together in a very long time, and I was at the sound check, and it sounded like Spacehog. And
Yep.
you didn't do a ton of rehearsing for this, right? Like,
We did about a week.
that doesn't seem like a
Well,
ton.
it doesn't seem like a ton, but we'd done some rehearsal last year.
Okay.
When we were offered a festival which got cancelled, unfortunately. And I have a neighbour, so I live in Oakland now.
Yeah.
And my neighbour is a semi-professional musician. And we got chatting, you know, the fact that I was in Spacehog came out, and he's like, oh man, you know, I love that band. And a couple of months later I says, well, you know what, we're maybe going to do some shows, and do you know anywhere where we can rehearse? He's like, I know the place. And he's like, my friend owns Studio 2200, which is basically the record plant in Sausalito.
Okay.
It's where they recorded Rumours, Fleetwood Mac's Rumours.
Okay.
Rick James did all his records there. Songs in the Key of Life was recorded
So
there.
some
Like
pretty-
a lot
pretty
of Metallica shit was
big
recorded there. It's a legendary studio. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, sure, you should come meet him. I went to meet him. He said, you can rehearse here for free, which was super generous of him. And we did a couple of weekends down there. I mean, it's glorious. It's just a beautiful
It's an amazing place.
museum of music.
Yeah.
Like Prince did his first record there. It's
Oh,
nuts.
Sausalito?
In Sausalito.
Okay.
It is a crazy place.
Okay.
And completely re-decked out in all the vintage equipment. Wonderful spot. And we rehearsed there. So, and we realised that we could do it. You know, it's amazing what the muscle memory holds in the brain. You know, it's all about retrieval.
Yeah.
You just got to retrieve that information. And it came together pretty quickly.
It seems like you have a pretty zen attitude toward this right now. And yes, you guys had some pretty big hits. One very big hit. You had this song in this film. Was it Rock Band, Guitar Hero at one point? Digging way back into my Spacehog repertoire. But in many ways, you're doing this because you want to. This isn't so much about the paycheck anymore, right?
It's pretty existential at this point, Andy. I mean, we're not. Yes, the money would be nice, but I think with music and where it's at, and I don't want to redundantly talk about the horrible situation the music business is in.
I'll say that for maybe another podcast.
I would say that it's not in great health.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of bands out there touring, trying to generate income that they'd lost from selling records and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of bands out there, and there's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
So it is hard. But as I say, I don't know how many opportunities we're going to have to do this.
And honestly, that's why I'm here. I mean,
and the music is just so, for me, in my opinion, beautiful and resonant and meaningful, and we have fans out there that get a lot out of it. And to see them singing the words and coming to the shows, even if it's not in huge numbers, means a lot. And it's all about. I'm not coming at it from a place of scarcity anymore.
Right.
I make a good living working, helping people, and I don't need to be running around picking up scraps, playing music.
Right.
If it comes, it comes. I am pretty kind of chill about it at this point.
Is there a possibility that there may be more Spacehog in the future?
I hope so. Let's see if everyone behaves themselves.
And that's a pretty non-committal answer there, but it could happen. If I would have asked you 5 years ago, you would have said probably not. And in fact, I did ask you 5 years ago, and you said probably not.
We have a great new manager, this guy called Rob Dillman, and he's very pragmatic, and he's always like, look, let's just do this, see what happens. What we're doing next, Rob, is like, let's just do this and see what happens.
So we'll see what happens.
Do the tour.
Okay.
Do the best shows you can possibly do.
All right.
And let's see what happens next.
Well, let's see if we can drum up some attention for this tour and future Spacehog. Maybe your practice, because it sounds, because I do another mental health podcast, The Power of One.
Yeah.
This is important stuff to me, and I'm glad you're doing it.
Yeah.
So let's get you to a gig. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here, Johnny.
Thank you, Andy.